Some people called Marie Laveau a witch, some called her a saint, some called her a demon. Who was Marie Laveau? Charles Laveau was father to Marie Laveau, and she was the legendary Voodoo queen of New Orleans. Marie Laveau's mother was a free woman of color named Marie Dalcontel. She immigrated to New Orleans from Haiti. And in that time period here in New Orleans, there was a tradition where if you were a free woman of color, not enslaved, but a free woman, and you chose to, you could become a Creole man's mistress. Now, once you became a Creole man's mistress, or to use the French word, when you became a placée, your lover was obliged to buy you a house. He had to sign a contract promising he would do that. He had to give you a reasonable living allowance, and if children were born out of the union, Dad was responsible for their financial support. So even though Marie Laveau did not live with her father, by all accounts, they did have a close relationship. When Marie Laveau turned 20, she married a sailor named Jacques Perret. Charles Laveau was present at the wedding. He gave the newlyweds a dowry to get them started in life, and he gave Marie a private wedding present of solid gold hoop earrings. For the rest of her life, in many of the paintings that we have of Marie Laveau, she is wearing the earrings that her father gave her. Unfortunately for Marie Laveau, a few years after she married Jacques Perret, he disappeared off the face of the earth. To this day, historians do not know. Did he drown at sea? Did he find a wife in another port? All we do know is that it meant Marie Laveau was now a young woman, all on her own. No husband. Both her parents were deceased at this point. She had to make her own way. Marie Laveau trained as a hairdresser. A few years after she became a hairdresser, that's when she became initiated into voodoo practice. And within a few years after that, people were referring to her as the Voodoo Queen. Now, some people were also referring to her as the Voodoo Devil, the Voodoo Witch, or others, the Voodoo Saint. What's the truth? Somewhere in the middle. Personally, what I believe is simply that Marie Laveau was a very smart, shrewd, capable woman, an excellent businesswoman with a very good sense of drama, and yes, she was an actual voodoo practitioner. Voodoo is a West African religion, and it is still practiced by millions of people worldwide. It's a very old religion. It is at least 7,000 years old, and it did come to the New World because of the slave trade. Now, one reason that people were calling Marie Laveau Voodoo Queen, or to use the African word, the Voodoo Mamba, any time of day you could go by her cottage in the French Quarter, huge line of people waiting on her services. There were sailors who would not set foot on a ship until she gave them some kind of charm to keep them safe. Pregnant women always wanted her to see them through labor. Now, people who practice voodoo, they have an adage. This is the adage. If you're about to use voodoo to gain whatever it is you're looking for, be very, very careful what you ask for. And because what you ask for is exactly what you're going to get, and in most cases that turns out to be exactly what you deserve. Case in point, Marie Laveau had a client who was a rather elderly gentleman, probably somewhere about 75. What he told Marie Laveau was every week when he went to Mass, he saw this beautiful young girl about 16 who always attended Sunday Mass with her father. Old man thought she was the most beautiful girl in the whole wide world, so he goes to her dad and proposes marriage. Fortunately for the old man, Dad was a degenerate gambler. He'd lost just about everything. So when this old guy shows up and says, look, I'm not only prepared to pay off your gambling debts, I'm going to give you a monthly allowance, Dad is thinking, well, woohoo, all my problems are solved. But now he has got to go to his 16-year-old daughter and say, honey, do you remember the old wrinkly guy at Mass who kept staring at you? How do you feel about marrying him? And she was like, ew, no. And she reminded her dad that anyway she couldn't marry him because she was already engaged to a carpenter she loved very much. Dad goes, well, carpenter's not going to pay off my gambling debts. You got to marry the old guy. Daughter refuses. Her father locks her up, beats her, but she's just not budging. That is when Daddy and the old suitor pay a visit to Marie Laveau, who listens to these two idiots and at the end asks them, "Are you absolutely sure, messieurs, you want a wedding?" Yeah. Marie Laveau goes, "Okay." She hands Dad a potion. She tells him he is to put 1 drop of this potion in his daughter's breakfast every morning for 6 mornings. Guaranteed morning 7, she'll agree to the wedding. Well, sure enough, morning 7 rolls around. Daughter comes down to the breakfast table, pale, eyes bloodshot, and goes, "You win, Father. I'll marry the old guy." Daddy wastes no time planning the wedding. 3 nights later, they are married. Then they have their wedding reception at the groom's big mansion. Now, you guys know normally, wedding reception, first dance is reserved for the bride and groom, so they take to the dance floor. Now, the old man, he was just grinning from ear to ear, whereas the poor young bride, she looked a lot more like she was at her own funeral than at her wedding. As they're dancing, groom's face turns purple, clutches at his chest, drops dead on the dance floor of a heart attack. Now, the young girl, she married that guy. She's his bride. It also turns out now she is his only surviving heir. She inherits the entire fortune, lets a few months go by, marries her carpenter, and they lived really well on a dead man's money. But when Daddy slithered around to get his gambling debts paid off, his daughter said, "Take a hike." So Dad goes right back to Marie Laveau whining, "This potion failed. I want my money back." To which Marie Laveau said, "Monsieur, my potion did not fail. You asked me for a wedding. I provided you with one. Perhaps you should have asked me for a marriage instead. You get exactly what you asked for in Voodoo and exactly what you deserve."